Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Making the Argument. All right, guys, this is where you get to see me fanboy over a guest that we've had on before. And the way I met this guy, the way I met this this lovable, hostile, self-described nerd was I was going through, and I was just so frustrated with all of the woke kind of just crap coming out of Hollywood. And it wasn't just the politics, right? It was the bad writing, and it was the destruction of our heroes. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out like everything I don't like about this. And then I come across this YouTube channel called Nerdrotic. And I watch this guy do reviews, and I'm like, yes, that guy is explaining everything that I am so frustrated about, because it wasn't just a bad movie. You actually sensed that there was something just subversive going on, like, dare I say, evil, and some of these things. And all of a sudden, this guy Gary is just explaining all of it beautifully, to the point where now I can't tell you the last time I went and saw a movie in the theaters was John Wick 4. Right. And I wasn't going because I was going for like a really powerful dialogue, right? Like,
no,
I wasn't going for great storytelling. But I spend a ton of time, barely a couple of days goes by that I don't watch Nerdrotic. And Gary, it is a pleasure to have you once again on the show to talk about a number of things. But you've got a book coming out.
Well, thanks for having me on, Nick.
Yeah.
And yes, I have a book coming out a little bit later this year. It's in pre-sale, which is very unusual for most books, but I have a lot of friends. I have Eric July, a good friend, but I have a lot of friends who create comic books independently, and they do the crowdfunding thing. And we thought it would be a good idea to maybe do a pre-sale. So that's what we're in right now. And it's a little different because it's not a comic book. It's a regular book. With illustration,
no coloring, there's illustration, there's pictures.
We got art by Kelly Jones, the prolific Batman artist, and Sandman. Kelly Jones does a page in there, but the book it's something that actually people have approached me in the past through AA. So I do I used to do speaker meetings all the time. I don't do them as much as I would like to. But I used to speak at meetings minimum once a month for about a decade straight. And I just give my experience, strength, and hope and all that, and how it was and how I'm doing now. And people would come up and say, well, you should write a book. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's weird, because I hear stories in here that every person could write a book.
Yeah.
Especially in recovery, when you listen to guys with like 30, 40 years, you want a book from them. I'm like, me? I don't know. Like, I it's not like it's any different. It was a rough life comparatively, but I think everybody has the unique story. So I don't want to come here saying like, well, my story is just the worst story ever told, because there's so much worse out there. But I didn't want it to be like initially it was, the publisher was like, well, let's do a YouTube thing. I'm all, no, I really don't want to do a zippity bow. Here's how I made it on YouTube, because in the grand scheme of things, it's great. I am very grateful to have 1 million subscribers. I never thought I'd get there, but I'm no Mr. Beast.
Face it, you don't just but you don't just have 1 million subscribers. Like, every single one of your videos that goes out is like in the minimum hundreds of thousands of views. And it's
grateful for.
I mean, that's significant. Like, for anybody that doesn't understand kind of the social media style of this, you can get to 1 million views and not have your videos get hundreds of thousands of views each. Ask me how I know, right? Like, so it's you guys actually do an incredibly quality product. It's like that. It's a really great intersection in between entertainment and information. And that's how I knew you, right? I just knew this guy as he never asks for anything. It's not like he's, one of the things that always impressed me about your channel was at the end, like your kind of signature sign off, if you liked it, this, if you didn't like it, I thank you for watching this long, right? It was, you're always giving something to the audience. You're never really asking for anything in return. And then, we sat down and talked, and I learned a little bit more about your background. And then the title of your book, I mean, Waiting for Nerdrotic: From Prison to YouTube. this is why I think it's like, look, I'm actually thrilled you didn't just write a book on, making it on YouTube and whatnot. I'm thrilled that you wrote about, an entire series of struggles, challenges, overcoming things, and then getting to this point, because there's a lot in that story that is not just, I'm sure, beneficial for you to be able to share and whatnot, but even more so for people. I think especially now when people are looking around feeling like, my gosh, the odds are against me. How do I make things work? How do I buy a house? How do I find a wife? And then you have someone that you've listened to, you've respected, you've enjoyed, and they're like, oh yeah, dude, it wasn't always this way.
No.
um, so can you give us a little bit of that background?
Sure. So in AA meetings, and I'm going to mention that a lot because it saved my life. It's a spiritual program. I was an atheist, and not that I'm a hardcore Christian. I found spirituality, I found meaning through that program, and I had to go through it multiple times. And I think, not unearned. I think a lot of people on the outside see it as just people sobbing and being sad, and
Mhm.
certainly that happens in the newcomer store, meetings where you're hearing like on the ground level somebody who's a couple days sober, which as a person who has 10 or 15 years, we need to hear that. But there's
Mhm.
also the old timers mixed in with the old timers doing those speaker meetings that I love so much, where they offer so much inspiration. There's so much inspiration, and that's why it's the one program that's really worked over rehabs or anything. And the percentages are still uh, really sadly really low, but it works. And it's worked over decades and decades, and it hasn't been infiltrated by politics
Mhm.
for the most part. And it's really been, it's not a cult or anything. It's just this thing where people go to help each other. And there is genuine welcomeness. Like I can mess up and fall down as many times as I did, and each time I came back into a meeting, I was nothing but welcome. There was no
Mhm.
judgment or anything. And it was, and it's that I needed. My story was broad strokes here. I'm adopted. My mom was 16 when she had me, and she wanted to keep me, but my dad, who I've never met, don't know what he looks like or whatever, took off on her when she was 16. I think he was only 17 or 18. They were kids, right?
Mhm.
Got adopted by a great family, a great family. My mom and dad were, just regular folks. My dad grew up in South Dakota without a father, poor as dirt, came out to San Diego, joined the Navy with his brother, and always had that mentality of he was super cheap. And I can appreciate that now because he
Yeah.
had nothing. He had no father,
Yeah.
nothing. He had to work a farm as like a prepubescent kid, and they just don't make them like that anymore. And he was born right at
Mhm.
the end of the Depression, right? And again, he's a Navy veteran, and and he had no blueprint on how to raise what was probably a demon child, right? So I didn't know, I wasn't always that way. I think I was told I was like a pretty nice kid at first, but I was born an addict. I would like my Halloween candy, it's all gone in one night, right?
Yeah.
And I was super obsessive with collecting toys, as you can see here. That part has not gone away. So addictive personality is there. We can debate the disease thing all we
Yeah.
want. Quickly, I see it as a disease that requires a conscious decision, so it doesn't relieve you of any responsibility. Like,
Got it. Got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's do you see it as something like do you see it as like a genetic
yeah,
predisposition?
like a brain
Okay.
chemistry thing.
Got it.
Like
Got it.
some people are just wild. Some people can have a beer, leave that half a beer on the, at the bar where and not think about it, and then some people need to drink that beer and drink until they're just blacked out. Like that's what an
Yeah.
addict is. And is there pain behind that? Well, we're gonna yes, yes. There's pain, abuse. I had my again, my parents were always. I've never blamed my parents for anything. They weren't perfect, but they did a really good job. They took me to baseball games and soccer games. My dad never missed a soccer or baseball game, despite how much he was working. He was an accountant. He would dip out at tax season and make sure he watched me. So they were
Yeah.
good. They did the best they could. I had an older sister. We weren't super close because she was 5 years older. She'd buy me beer once in a while, and she turned me
Yeah.
on to like Led Zeppelin and stuff, which is great. But and she's cool. But early on, in elementary school, this is This is why I pop off on this. So I was abused. We'll just say I was abused by a teacher in second grade, horribly abused, and that rewires a kid. So this is why you know, you see so many people protective of children, and this is one of the reasons why, because when you get abused like this, it affects them for the rest of their life. They are changed forever. They are never going to be the same again, no matter how much they heal. That's always going to be there. And what that did, and it took me a long time to realize that, it broke my trust with any institution or adult forever. Forever. And I was never going to make it in school after that. I don't know what happened to the teacher. He was gone a couple years later. They had me repeat the grade because after that happened, when the final incident happened, I walked out of school and I started walking home, and the bus driver had to come and get me and collect me back. And my parents just didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was in second grade. I was scared to death. So I didn't say anything, right? So they repeated me because I was so effed up after that I had to repeat the grade. They flunked me after that. And school was, I just never did well. I just never did well after that. I could manage a C once in a while, but it was just never my thing. Now, if I had a really good teacher, there's a couple times where I had a good teacher who could engage me and who I trust, and I'd get a good grade in their class. But for the most part, I was always drifting off and stuff. And that was always there before, but after the abuse, I was just, kind of a freaked out kid. I was just a freaked out kid. And I started like misbehaving. Like, first house I broke into, I think I was 8 or 9, because I wanted a kid's toy and I knew where his spare key was. I saw him use the spare key once and I just went in there, got caught by his dad, which was not fun. So that's kind of where it started, and it got worse. And then
was there, not to interrupt, but was there ever a point where people became aware of what had happened? Like when you were still a kid?
Later on, yeah, when I told my parents what happened.
Okay.
Like, that's when they became aware, and that was not until like 19. Like, the first time I went to rehab, I told them. And they felt like horrible. They felt horrible, and I tried to tell them, like, it's not your fault. Like, I didn't know what to do. In the past, I've named the guy. I have my school picture from that day with a big red circle around his face, and many fantasies about murdering him horribly and slowly. But ultimately, through recovery, I had to forgive him. Like, that's the best. That's the only way I could let go. Is you just got to forgive him, and it sucks. And I don't know what happened to him, and I don't know if he went off and did it to other kids. I'm sure. I'm guessing, but yeah, I had to go through that, and it just kind of, it broke me. But I was like already an addict. That just didn't help. And I came into my own as an addict in 6th, 7th grade. I started. I think my first beer was at the Roscoe, South Dakota Centennial. There was a half a beer like on a stage, and I just drank it, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I started putting like vodka in my little juice. We didn't have juice boxes. We had bottles in school. And I started putting in vodka in my high C little plastic bottles, and did that like on and off for a couple years, and then discovered drugs and speed. And like, wow, I can get some of my homework done, and I care about things. And it was just off to the races. And again, broad strokes, by 10th grade, I was done with school. I had been kicked out of San Diego High School, been put to Sunset High School, which was a continuation school it was a strange school. It was for really smart kids who were too smart for high school, and then all the burnouts like me. So you had a mix of geniuses and burnouts at this school.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. Got kicked
out.
How'd
that work?
It got the geniuses got stoned a lot because they hung out with the burnouts too much. But I met a lot of friends. A lot of friends who I hung out with a long time. when we didn't go to school anymore. And I was also able to find some great drugs there. That's all right. I dropped acid the first time at Sunset. So,
wow.
Oh yeah. I don't know if this made the book. I gotta make double check. I think it did. I think it made the edit. My first time behind the wheel driver's test, I was high on acid and I passed.
Oh my gosh.
With this,
where was this at? What state was this?
This was California. This was
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense now.
yeah. So Sunset, that's in Encinitas. I don't know if it's still there or not. And then I was supposed to go from there to Carlsbad High, and I didn't even make my first day there. They're like, "Nope, you're not coming in." So I'm like, I'm done with school. And
what year is this? What year
this
of school
is 1985 and 86.
Okay.
86.
But what year were like sophomore that year?
I was sophomore.
Sophomore, like you're done with high school as a sophomore.
Done.
Okay.
Done.
So then what's next?
What's next is all the people I met at Sunset and all the kids I had met. We hung out at this arcade where all the punk rockers and the metalheads and skaters. We hung out at like this arcade all the time. We also hung out at a friend of mine's house. I can't say his name. Just protect his identity. His dad was basically never there. His dad was an alcoholic and a bartender. So we had this, if you're familiar with the punk rock scene of the UK, there's a thing called the Crass House. We had basically something like that, where it was a bunch of wayward teens, runaways, artists, drug dealers, basically living in this house and partying 24/7 for 2 years straight.
Wow.
2 years straight.
Can I ask you a question? So out of all the people that would have been like at that house, kind of in that scene and whatnot, obviously a lot of drug, alcohol use, I'm assuming.
Tons.
So would you say that a lot of the people that were in that scene had some form of either neglect growing up, abuse, family issues, or was that not necessary? Or was that a common thread?
That was the common thread. And
that was the common.
When we even get to the prison part, that is the common thread. It is no dad around, divorce, abuse, sexual or just physical, alcoholism, drug addiction, just paying it forward. That was pretty much every single person I hung out with had some kind of, I can't think of a good kid who had a solid family who was, I can't, no, everybody had like at the very least divorced parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And in many cases, much, much worse. And it was just better to not be at home. Right. Yeah. It was, when I look back, it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad, but we also tried to make the best out of it by partying our brains out, and and a lot of them survived and a lot of them didn't. A lot of them are dead now, which is sad. But it got worse for me because that, like, the partying, I just couldn't get enough drugs. So as a teenager, I started like lightly dealing to get my habit, and stealing stuff to get to keep the habit going. I tried jobs, but I never last very long. And eventually it got to cooking, meth, and then eventually it went into prison. And both times, I have 2 felonies. So both times I was arrested was for burglary. Amazingly enough, the only time I've ever got busted for drugs, they weren't mine. The dealer was
sure, Gary.
I could say it now. I would be too. I know. But that's what they were saying at the time.
Wasn't mine, officer.
Right? So I'm driving my 67 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, and I have Batman handcuffs. I get pulled over for the Batman handcuffs hanging from the rearview mirror because that's a ticket. And then my dealer's in the back. I told him to leave his damn scale and drugs at home, and he didn't. It's under my seat, right?
Yeah.
And the cop knows me. This little cop hates my guts. And they search the car, they find it. I go to jail, and that's like the first time I go to jail. And that's the only time my dad like got me a lawyer and got me off. But the guy, like the dealer in the back, ratted me out and never turned, like ratted me out and just left me to rot.
Wow.
He said,
I've always wanted. So how old were you when that happened?
That was 1988. late 1988. So I was
So
18.
how old were you been? 18. Okay.
Yeah.
So 18, just becoming an adult. This is your first time in jail. What was that like when the officer searches the car, I'm assuming, and finds that, and like your buddy totally, bails on you? What was that like going to jail for the first time?
That was a shit your pants experience. Thank God I actually didn't, but
Yeah.
I was in downtown San Diego in the holding cell, and it was welcome to the jungle, man. It was
Yeah.
whoa.
So, something tells me like 18-year-old Gary wasn't intimidating the other occupants.
No. I was like at the back wall trying to just like Homer Simpson going back into the hedge. Like that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Made a couple of desperate phone calls. I ended up being in there for like a couple months. Months. Yeah. And I like you eventually get it, but it's very airy. There's all these bunks. So it's not cells. It's just you're in a big open cage.
Bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in that first couple months, it was a blur, and stayed out of trouble. But I hate this place. I never want to come back. But that was like the easiest time I ever had in, and I was doomed to go back. I did a lot of little stints in jail, a couple months here, a couple months there. Then eventually, because of my habit and because I was a thief, I would break into houses, and the worst kind, by the way, hot prowls, which could get a lot of people hurt. A lot of people killed, a lot of people hurt. That's terrible. The first one,
when you say hot prowl, just explain what you.
Hot prowl is when somebody's home.
Yeah.
So they leave a slide. Don't ever leave your sliding glass door open. I don't care where the hell you are. Yeah. You leave a sliding glass door open. I go in and I never had the intention to my intention would always be if somebody came down, I'm leaving. I'm not going to hurt anybody.
From what I understand, it's kind of a target of opportunity. A window's open, a garage is open, something's there. There's an easy grab. Yeah.
You grab a purse.
But there's also a high probability that someone's also home. So.
High probability, right? The first one was dumb. I basically lost a year of my life over a giant glass water bottle full of pennies. That's it. Year of my life.
Yeah.
Didn't even get to keep the pennies.
Yeah, right?
So that was county jail, right? That was my first felony. So I did county jail, and then I went to fire camp for that, which was actually a pretty good experience,
going to fire camp?
So fire camp is, I was minimum security. I have to do my year time. So I'm in a jail cell, but then they eventually farm you out to a camp, and then you have an opportunity to apply to be a CDF firefighter. You get trained. You're clearing line. You're not like holding. You're not like the coolest thing.
You're making fire breaks and stuff like that, right?
Fire breaks, using the McLeod,
hot shot sort of stuff.
Yeah. And did that. Fought multiple fires and got in shape. Made $1 a day. Got smoked cigarettes. It was great. It was great. Then I broke my tailbone, and that was it. I broke my tailbone. I spent the last couple months basically sitting not on my ass. Then
my grandfather was a hot shot for a while, and he said it was some of the hardest work he'd ever done. Just physically just grueling.
The training was grueling because you had to do at the time the bare minimum, but you had to do firefighter training.
Yeah.
So we're
do you
there.
Do you get certification?
Yeah, we got a certification.
Okay.
We did.
Cool.
And we were able to use that if we wanted to. We could have gone out and probably applied for at least seasonal work, which there's a ton of. And guess what? California burns every summer. I know they say it's climate change, but there's this thing called summer, and it gets hot.
No,
and
Gavin Newsom told me that was a fluke. That was a fluke.
Yeah, and you know what you have to do? You have to rake the forests every year. You have to rake them literally.
So my wife's parents lived in Paradise. Well, they still do, but they lived in Paradise. So they lived in Paradise, California. So they went all through that, and there was a lot of frustration over land management out there based off of the great old state of California. So you get it. So okay, so you've got through this process. You've been in jail. Now you go in. You got a year-long stint because of burglary. You're on the fire crew and whatnot, and now you're done after that first year.
That first year, I'm in shape. Okay. I go back out, meet a lot of girls because I'm in shape. And then
Yeah.
I start getting high again, and within a year, I'm in prison. So the second hot prowl was was breaking into a house of an ex-girlfriend at the time because you had familiarity.
Yeah.
And then best guard dog you could possibly have is a small barky dog, not a big
I've
dog.
got it. So to everyone that gives me crap about my Yorkie, screw you, man.
There you go. Big dogs you can feed.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them will still bark, but big dogs you can feed. Little dogs don't give up.
I was saying my boxers for this high price of a casual glance in their direction and a kind word, my boxers would have let you murder me. My Yorkie will fight you to the death for getting within 100 meters of my home.
Yep. Yep. So this was a little fluffy mutt thing. And I'm not going to like, I guess somebody asked me one, like, I think I was already in prison, but somebody's like, why didn't you just kill the damn dog? I'm not going to kill a dog.
I'm not a savage.
I'm not a demon. I'm not inhuman.
Yeah.
So they never crossed my mind to kill the dog.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to get out. So,
Yeah.
I run out, and this is like, I don't believe in coincidences. This is the higher power working in my life. So I entered in through a side door, through a garage, and then through the garage door inside. So I'm leaving that way. I'm like, I'm going to leave that way because little Barky McBarkpants is not leaving me alone. And he was chasing me the whole way through. So I go to the door, to that side door that I just used, Nick, and the door handle falls off.
Oh,
and I can't open the door. So I have to run back to open the garage door, and it was too late. The guy was down there already, and he's got his gun pointing right here, shaking. And I'm like seeing the bullets in the chamber. I'm like, I'm dead. I'm dead.
Jeez.
I'm dead. Cop comes in. They came fast and like slowly just goes, sir, put the gun down. Put the gun down. Put the gun down. Saves my life. Saves my life. And this guy was nervous. Then I find out later, oh, he was on the Navy like pistol team and could have freaking just popped me whenever he wanted to. I ended up writing him a letter. I don't know if he ever responded or anything, but I wrote him a letter like apologizing for putting him through all that trauma and everything. And told him I'd never bother him again. Like, this is just a letter going, I'm sorry. But then I went to, so that was 2 felonies, no getting out of this one, 4-year sentence. So the first sentence was a year, but it was originally going to be 2, but it was brought down to just a day under a year. So I did it. We pled out. So I did it in county and not in prison. This one can't avoid. So you get a 4-year sentence, and then you do about halftime on good behavior. And it was going to Donovan down in San Diego, which was a receiving facility at the time. Don't know if it was, got lost in the system, ended up staying there for like 5 months. You're only supposed to stay there 2. And then I went behind the wall at Old Folsom because they were doing some skullduggery. They were taking a level 4 prison and turning it into a level 2 prison. But they were mixing the level 2s and 4s. So 2s are, they're not so bad. You know, they could eventually go out to minimum security, and 4 is murderers, straight up murderers. And they were transferring them to Pelican Bay at the time.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Pelican. So my dad was LAPD, and he used to tell me stories about Pelican Bay being like, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So, my cellmate was double murderer, piece of crap. Couldn't stand him. Well, there's a whole bit in the book, but we came to it was not a good end. It was not a good end. And I luckily, because I was basically hysterical, came out on top on that one. And he wanted to write my mom. Like, there was a bunch of stuff I can't get.
Wow.
It would make the story so much longer, but there was like Pruno involved, and he wanted to.
This is why you got to buy the book.
Yeah, just a freaking weirdo. And I ended up going off on the dude, and I avoided the whole. That was tricky because because I'm like, I almost need to go to the hole, or I'm going to look like a snitch. I need to don't do me any favors. I need to go to the hole. But like, there was enough other people watching, other prisoners watching to say, no, the guy didn't rat anybody out.
Let me ask you a question on that. So, I mean, obviously county jail is one thing, but now you're in state prison. Obviously the movies got all their, they give the impressions of how things really are in there. What if you could name like one thing that Hollywood kind of depicts, because I mean, Hollywood's your thing, analyzing Hollywood, analyzing stories, movies. One thing Hollywood depicts about prison that's absolute garbage, and one thing that they pretty much got on spot on.
Oh, as far as prison
experience, yeah.
The prison experience. Oz is garbage. It's I guess it's fun. But it wasn't my experience that there was that much sex in prison. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. With if you're gay, you're probably gonna have sex in prison. I'm not gay.
It's what you might call a target-rich environment.
That's pretty much it. That answers the question. I don't care what your boy says when he gets out. If you're gay, you're gonna probably have sex in prison.
Okay.
But listen, the American Me.
Yeah, really.
American Me, which was strangely enough finished filming right before I got to Folsom.
Oh wow.
American Me is
Ed Norton.
No, it's
what am I thinking of? No. American Me is about MA, right?
Yeah. American Me is I'm blanking. Why am I blanking on this? It's Adama. Adama's in it. Yeah. And it's great. It's great.
So that's all American Me is. It's all about Mexican mafia and the prison system, right? Yeah. Okay.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, like some of Oz got it right, but most of the time, for one, it's not dark in prison. It's really well lit. There's always that dark. It's like,
they're trying to make it dark. See,
no.
It's whenever Hollywood shoots a prison or anywhere in Mexico, right? It's like that dark filter.
It's really like, that's why I hate fluorescent light, because it's always on. It always smells of this, at least at the time, this orange cleaner that I can't stand that smell anymore. It takes me back there, and I can't eat oranges. Like
oh really?
Yeah, I can't, because they always gave you oranges in prison. The smell just reminds me of it. I just hate them now. But the experience is pretty boring for the most part, and just interrupted by moments of sheer terror, which probably would be like, a lot of other, like, prison's not as bad as
okay, I got to say this real quick because it's really funny, because you're talking about this from the perspective of someone that was in state prison. My father, again, being a police officer, I asked my dad once, what's it like being a cop in Los Angeles? And he goes, hours of tedium, punctuated by moments of sheer terror.
Yeah. I mean, there's times where like I was quite relaxed. I was reading books and fine. And like, I mean, you always don't want to be there. Every minute you're thinking about what you're missing. You're missing your loved ones, deep regret. If you're somewhat human, like, how does this, look at how does my mom feel right now? How does my dad feel right now? So, I was really into escapism, and I read the most books I've ever read. When I was behind the wall, I didn't go to the yard much at all. Because there's still kindness in there. There was a nice guy who's just like, look at this little pup coming into this savage land. So he's like, listen, kid, you'll be fine. And then he's like, don't do these 3 things. Don't mess with, trying to do this politically correct. Don't gamble.
Got it.
Don't mess with drugs.
Yeah.
Don't mess with the gays. You're fine. You're going to be fine. When you're faced with a fight, you fight. You fight. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, you fight. You just show that you can fight, so you don't become a bitch.
That's pretty much it. Target. Yeah. You're not a
mind your own business. Mind your own business. Don't get in anybody's crap. You didn't see anything. And I learned that very quick. I was like, you know what? I'm good with minding my own business. I don't care what you're doing.
So when you're in there and you're reading a lot, you're doing things like that. Like when, again, is my knowledge of you initially through Nerdrotic was, you spoke and you discussed about like the full scope of things that Hollywood did. But when it came to anything that was like comic book related or sci-fi related or fantasy related, you could always tell that there was a special, right? There was a special place for you kind of in those various genres. Is that something that you got into as a kid? Is that something that, you got into more in prison when you were reading? Like, what was the genesis of really becoming like kind of immersed in that world?
That was from the beginning as a kid. I
Okay.
learned how to read on comic books. I grew up on Star Wars, Star Trek, Twilight Zone, all of those things, and they stayed apart despite like me being detached from my family and all my life. What kept me grounded to reality was my interests. I never stopped, even in my worst drug days, I never stopped
Mm,
reading Twilight Zone books. There was a lot of books, Star Trek books, comic books, watching movies every weekend. I was still a nerd through and through. And it did really help in prison.
mm,
Like I was able to basically catch up on some classics that I never read.
yeah.
That's where I kind of really got into recovery. I've been to rehab before prison, but then in prison, just to get out, you would go to church once in a while. I would go to the AA meetings just to get out. And then it started sinking in. And I really didn't want to come back. I was like,
Mm,
very early on, I'm like, I don't ever want to come back here. But what was always part of that, I'll never forget. I didn't have much, right? But I'll never forget, like, I had a Frank Miller Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns compilation that I just read over and over and over and over and
mm.
over again. It was my jam, and it was my go-to, just like because it was a nice place to be. I know that's hard to believe, but like just reading Batman was better than where I was right there. So I'll always be grateful to I still have that book too. It's a leather bound book that my mom sent me.
Was there any characters in particular from what you read that you identified with or that you associated with?
Any character that tries to fight his inner nature. So,
Ah,
that would be, Ghost Rider, would be one. Later on, Angel from Buffy and Angel, and
mm,
Hellboy, which was later on too. Those are characters like any character that's trying to do good and fight against their inner nature is
yeah.
something I kind of gravitate to.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fast. So you end up getting out, and what ends up? So did you feel like when you got out the second time, did you feel like you were in a much better place on, um, what was going to happen next and what you were going to do? Or
Yes.
okay,
It worked on me, I guess. I was ready to go recovery like immediately. I was so great. Just the first day I walked out of prison, I wish I could bottle it and just give it to everybody. It's a feeling of like I don't need anything materially at all.
yeah,
I
huh,
want for nothing. I'm free. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
free. I can go walk on the beach whenever I want. I can go to my first meal was a Denver omelet at Denny's, and it was the greatest thing I've ever had. And that first week, I was like on cloud nine. I was with my parents, and they said, "Yeah, you can live here for a couple months, but then you got to go get a job and get out."
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I would go on 5 mile walks on the beach because I could,
yeah,
and I didn't need any. I didn't have any money. I had $200 when I got out of there, and a pair of clothes and I was fine. I was totally fine. Then a good friend of mine from childhood's like, "I'll give you a job, like a little part-time job. Just don't
don't
make me
screw that.
regret it." Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I almost made him regret it, but it was at the Warehouse Records, and I got a little part-time job thanks to my friend Doug. I'll always be grateful for that. And I was in a better place. I started going to meetings, met my first wife. Life was pretty good, and again, my expectations were pretty, well, they were low, but they were gratefully low. They were like,
Yeah,
"I'm just working. That's all I
yeah,
need right now."
yeah,
And I
yeah.
had no marketable skills, so I had a concern of, like, I need a marketable skill, and I got one accidentally. Like, I had trained for one in prison, actually. I become a remember print machines and print
Oh
shops?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was kinda obsolete by the time I got out because of the internet. Um, so I just started parts driving, and it led me into to being to working at dealerships and other companies, selling parts. Did that for a while. Um, I'll try to get through this as fast as I can. And then, dad died of cancer, which really kind of changed my perspective on things. Ended up getting divorced, moved to San Francisco. I've known Melissa for years, by the way. My wife, my current wife,
Yeah,
she knew me during all this, like
yeah.
all this. She was front row seat for all this stuff, right? Opened up a comic shop, a couple kids, and things were
So
going
you and
great.
Melissa had a couple kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and then Relapse. Relapse on success. I was starting to, I stopped going to meetings, start feeling, everything started going to my head, and it fell apart fast. It fell apart.
Was it when you say the relapse on success, was it the idea of you got to the point where now, look, you had started from this whole standpoint of my life's just ruined, right? I'm getting out of
Yeah.
jail. And then it was like, okay, it was an appreciation for just the basics. Like I don't need anything fancy. Just being able to walk on the beach is sufficient. And then all of a sudden you have this other moment with divorce, father died of cancer, divorce, moved to San Francisco. Was it the idea? Was it something where like now all of a sudden you're remarried, you've got kids, you've got a successful business, and it was just the idea that you just figured it out?
Yeah, it was the arrogance. Stopped
Okay.
going to meetings, stopped being grateful. Like that was, and I obviously still had a lot of work to do in AA that I hadn't done. A lot of unresolved issues that were long in the making, but it was a simple injury that kind of got the ball rolling again. It wasn't right away, but I never touched pain medication or anything. And I crushed my thumb, and they gave me some Vicodin, and it was pretty bad injury. So I took it, and that kind of clicked things on. And eventually, I just want to speed this. Eventually, I picked up right where I left off, because it's not only a disease, it's a progressive one, the addiction. So
Got it. So
meaning
you got to do more and more and more to chase
it's like you never quit. So you pick up where you left off, and I did. And I found that out for sure. Like for sure. And in a very short amount of time, everything I had built was damn near gone. Had to sell the comic store, kicked out of the house, probably not going to ever talk to my kids again, probably going to die. I was taking so much stuff, and I was mixing, thankfully, well, I think fentanyl was just getting on the scene then. So, thankfully that didn't get me. This was 10 years ago. So this was during the opioid epidemic when it was being overprescribed. But like, listen,
oh yeah, big time.
it's all my fault. It's all my fault. The addiction was all my fault. Melissa did one last act of kindness and is like, I got you into sober living. You're going to go there, and then maybe you can come home. Maybe not. Probably not.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And at that point, a couple of good friends rallied around me and took me to. I committed to 90 meetings in 90 days, and was off to the races again. Got myself a sponsor again. Did the work. Had to start out working. I went from business owner to making $12 an hour at O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and had to work my way back up through automotive because that was my skill. And always had this in the back of my mind, like, I miss my comic store. I miss talking to the customers every day. So I started this stupid podcast, just as a hobby, and it turned into this.
Yeah.
And to where my last job was Tesla. I worked for Elon in the parts department for Tesla.
Nice.
And yeah. And I quit to do YouTube because YouTube took off.
Yeah. It's fun. I remember the first time I ever got introduced as a social media influencer. Like, what the hell did you just call me?
Don't call me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Melissa stuck with you through it.
Yep.
I mean, I have to ask this question because it's something when I remember when I was growing up, I never touched drugs.
Good.
And the reason why I think is because my mom was a nurse, my dad was a police officer. For me growing up, my dad associated drugs with his friends getting killed. And I mean, on the police force. And so my dad had almost this like visceral hatred for it. And I, loved, idolized my dad. And so for me, the idea of doing that meant, not that it would have, but in my mind, it was like, this is a line I cannot cross, because I will not get away with it. When your mom's a nurse and your dad's a cop, like you're not, and even though they were divorced, like there's no way I get away with this. And so as a result, I never had to struggle with that. And it's interesting now because when the opioid crisis was really kicking off, I had just got elected to the state legislature. And so I had friends that had lost kids to it. And there was always, Nick, we need more legislation for this. We need more legislation this. We need more, funding for this, funding for that. And there was a term that was used a lot. And I don't know why it didn't sit right with me, but it was, well, Nick, we need to remove the stigma associated with addiction. And I remember, and to this day, I still, whenever I hear that, I'm like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Like, I certainly don't want there to be stigma associated with recovery. I don't want there to be stigma associated with somebody admitting that they have a problem, that they got it. But don't we want a stigma associated with destructive behavior?
Yes.
And so that's my question, right? Like, how do we walk that line with, obviously, I don't want to see someone as the only thing you are as this is your struggle, because everyone's got one of those,
Yep.
right? Or multiple. But by the same token, I don't want a stigma is basically a social acknowledgement that this is bad. And I don't, so I've always struggled with that idea that, no, I don't want to remove the stigma from the thing that's killing people. But I do want them to be able to get help. And so I understand that if there can be shame associated with admitting a problem, but
this is where it falls into, in my opinion, there's some good-hearted people who really just want to remove stigmas from everything, and they just want everybody to be loved as they are, and I don't think they're evil. I think they're naive, and in some cases very dumb. Because we got to look at the world as it is. I think there's also people, usually from the progressive left, the uber progressive left, who use those type of people and use those type of situations and opportunity to destroy a system that they want to destroy. And what's the best way to destroy that? Let all the criminals go free. Let all give all the drug addicts free needles. You're murdering people by doing that. And I'm a live and let live person. I very much believe in liberty and freedom and the minimum government in all things, taxation and stuff, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't need the government helping an addict. And and how do we clean up the streets? Well, we stop giving them free shit. We stop giving them incentives to come there. You don't make it easier for fentanyl to get in here. You make it harder. No, I don't think every drug should be legal. I don't think fentanyl should be legal, like ever. It's a personal struggle of mine to probably weed should be legal, but I think you're really dumb if you do it like regularly. Once in a while is fine, but I think if you're awake and bake, it's not very smart. It's not very good for you. And I hate the smell of it. So, but like the world doesn't bend to me. The world doesn't bend to me. And I understand it. And it's something I put up with, but, and it's very unpopular with some of the 420 people. It's healthy. It's not healthy. Okay. It's just not.
I used to get in battles with this with people like, Nick, why don't you carry legislation? I said, look, I struggle with this because I don't think it's a good idea, but I also struggle with the government telling you what to do with what you want. And so like, I remember telling somebody once, like, why don't you carry a bill? I'm like, I'll tell you why. Because I don't like it. Now, I may very well be on one where it's like, look, I don't think you should go to jail for this.
No.
Right? I don't think you should go to jail. I voted for decriminalization at one point. I said, but by the same token, I don't want to encourage it. And the moment you start arguing for it in the sense of this is a really good idea, I'm like, now I think you're full of crap, right? Like I just, I don't, I always struggle with too much government authority. Not because I think people are always going to make the right decisions with their freedom, but
it's their right to make though.
Well, I always go back to what I really, really want. And I know it's really hard to achieve this. What I want is a strong overlap between personal freedom and personal responsibility. And the more I've looked at it, the more I find we're dealing with a civilization where there's a lot of people that want that. They want personal freedom and they accept responsibility for their actions. And those people thrive in a free environment. And then you have people that want to tell everybody else what to do. And they range from your Karens to, your authoritarians. And then you have other people that they talk a good game about freedom as long as everyone else is paying for it. And I don't really, I don't really dig in either of those crowds. But well, but when it comes to the issue of like, what is, and maybe there isn't in one way to do it, but what worked for you? Like it wasn't removing the stigma associated with something. Was it a combination of having a wife, having kids, having friends that came across? Was it certain experiences you had? Like if the answer is not removing stigma, but we want people to be able to acknowledge and take responsibility and also and get help, what is that? What is a good answer for that?
I think we'll be looking for that till the end of time. I can tell you what worked for me. And stigma and shame should absolutely be part of it. You should like,
Mhm.
and you, that's where the disease aspect comes out. It's like we can accept the fact that we have a disease that requires a conscious decision and our
Mhm.
brain chemistry is bad, but it does not, and I repeat, does not make resolve any of our, it doesn't, it, we have to take responsibility for all of our behavior while we're on drugs that we made a conscious decision. It's not like some disease. I would equate it to being possessed. That's how you
Mhm.
feel about it. I'd really equate it to, that's still me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt possessed, but it's still me, and it's
Yeah.
still
It's
my
not
response.
polio. It's not
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah, it's none of
Yeah.
that. It
Yeah.
is, and there has to be, yes, there has to be shame if you're out there crapping yourself, and and it's sad. It's incredibly sad, and we
Yeah.
can't save everybody. We can't. We could throw as much tax dollars as we want. We can't. What we need to do is encourage recovery, and it's just not going to click with everybody, and that's just a sad reality. And I know there might be parents out there or siblings who've lost people. I've lost people to drug addiction, and it's horrible. And the best thing you can do as a family member is at some point let them go. The greatest act of love my father ever showed me was kicking me out of the house
Mhm.
permanently when I was a teenager
Yeah.
because I was becoming a distraction. And I can't imagine how hard that was for him, but he had to do it. And
Mhm.
I had to get sober on my own. That's the thing about you can throw people in jail and rehabs, and it's great. Learning a 12-step program is great or whatever works. And sometimes people get sober without 12. I'm not here to judge that without
Yeah.
12-step programs, but it says you got to hit bottom. You got to hit your personal bottom. You have to want it. There's nobody that can make. You can't force it. Like you will. It'll be the drowning man or woman. It will pull you down.
Mhm.
You want to be supportive, but you also have to be at arm's length. And yeah, they're like, we can't say, well, they're just poor addicts and we're going to let them die in the street. That's one of the most cold-blooded, most evil things you can do, to
Mhm.
be honest with you, is provide them with poison and
Yeah.
provide them with means to get their poison. And it doesn't affect crime. And actually, they say, well, they'll steal less. No, they're going to get high more and steal more.
Mhm.
And I wish I had all the answers. But I would,
Well, do you mentioned kind of going back to what your own experience was and what you also saw going back to like being in high school and going to the parties and whatnot. How being that it seems to be a common thread with respect to home life and a lot of this, how important do you think? Because one of the things I talk a lot about on my channel is the whole issue of fathers, and that society as a whole is kind of like denigrated masculinity. And if you denigrate masculinity, you will, by proxy, denigrate fatherhood, at least fatherhood in this sort of way that I think most of us kind of always thought about it and understood it, is this idea that dad was strong and dad protected and dad provided and dad held you to standards. And those are things that dad did. And it wasn't that it wasn't loving or shouldn't be loving. There's that aspect of it, but that was part of the love. Dad being strong, dad providing, dad being there, dad holding you to standards. Um, how big a role do you think fathers play? And this is not to take anything away from mothers. Like I absolutely love and respect my mother like you would not believe. So like grateful. But how important role do you think fathers specifically play in that idea of protecting against those sort of influences or those sort of things?
it's it's like we said earlier, it's a common thread through addiction is abuse. So it's either a absent father, a destructive father. They play their roles. They definitely play their roles, and it's also mm, is it I guess the question would be, is it systematic? Is it this systematic destruction of the nuclear family that we see? We keep hearing from the progressive, and it's all through Hollywood, which is just absence of masculinity right now, is down with the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Well, having a good dad is important. And I've seen the results of not having a good dad I've been to prison, and I've seen disproportionate amount of black men in prison based on the population. We can say that's a societal thing. I think it's all of the above. I think it's environmental, it's societal, it's economic, and it's also the lack of fathers, the lack of the black nuclear family, which was utterly destroyed by the progressive left, by making the state the daddy, in my opinion, just through my experience. And we see a return to somewhat with this cultural shift to the traditional, like we actually see the new generation talking about having kids,
Yeah.
where we have generations where like, I don't want kids. I used to be one of those. I used to be, I don't want kids. Kids are awesome. They've had so
Yeah.
much meaning to my life, and like, I
Yeah.
love them. So I long story short, dads are very important. Moms and dads are very important, or at least a male and a female in a household, and they got to love their kids. There's a lot of bad dads out there,
Yeah.
no doubt, and they need to retake responsibility for that too. But that's the common theme I've seen in addiction and through prison was a combination of things, but it's usually abusive dad or no dad. A lot of times, no dad, just none.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the women do the best they can. But like, when the dad's gone, there's a reason nature had it this way. There is, and it works. Some single moms do some great work, but with
Yeah.
kids and stuff, and I've seen it. But
Well, and I know in my own life, like growing up, I got to see my dad about 3 to 4 months out of the year. I'd spend the summers with dad. He would come up for holidays and stuff like that. And it was, I remember the first time someone told me, "Oh, you're from a broken home." And I was like, what do you mean? Because it's kind of normal.
it was
Like I just
normal
thought
for
this
you.
is kind
Yeah.
of how it was. And, it was interesting because I look back now and I was like, okay, that guy was technically right. But the one thing too, that I think is important to understand is that, I probably had the best possible divorced, scenario because my mom didn't run down my father didn't run
Mhm.
down my mom, and my dad really did make the effort. Like I felt loved even when I couldn't see him, and I felt like, I didn't feel like he was avoiding me or anything like that. And the reason why I say that is because I think it says something. I think it says something about how effective just making the attempt in a way that your kids know you're making it.
Yep. It doesn't have to be
Um,
perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
it pays incredible dividends. But well, there was one other thing I want to get to. I know we're already closing in on an hour here, but if you've got just a little bit more
I
time,
do.
there's
It's all good.
one other thing I want to get to, because the bottom line is you went through all of this, right? Came out the other end, and now you've got this incredibly successful channel. And again, what I want anybody who's watching this that hasn't seen the channel, I didn't start watching it because I never read comic books, right? There was like, I liked Star Wars, right? What red-blooded American didn't like Star Wars? But I was never into a lot of the things you were into. But the thing that struck me again was not your knowledge of this topic. It was your ability to explain this from a cultural lens that connected not just with me, but with millions of people, who are watching your content on a daily basis. And kind of the last thing I wanted to get to here was what for you, and it may even be it's hard for me to to articulate the question properly. What do you think put you in this position? And I'm just declaring this for you, so you don't got to be humble or anything like this. But what do you think put you in this position to be able to cut through all of the nonsense and get to the root of kind of the cultural problems that we were watching in Hollywood and still watch in Hollywood, and to be able to kind of break that down to explain it on a level where everybody, like, I can't tell you the number of people that watch what you put out there and say, yes, I knew it was something, but I couldn't quite get to it. Like, what do you think that was?
Oh, I mean, aside from higher power and the people who like listened and I mean, that's the people connecting that I somehow connected with are the reason the channel's here. But uh, working retail in comic shops and stuff,
Yeah.
and talking to people constantly all day, and talking about stories and so the whole job of a comic shop owner was I got to match you to your story. So I
Yeah.
find out your taste, find out kind of what you're into. Because a lot of people like, I've never bought a comic before, and I'm like, okay, what's your favorite movie? You know, what's your favorite color?
Mhm.
What is that? Like, I'd ask a bunch of questions, and then I'd
Yeah.
point them to a book, right? So and seeing just the cross section of life, even in San Francisco, which was working class San Francisco, came in because comic books is a working class hobby. So working class people coming in every day after their job, hanging out, and that's all I did. That's all I did. And again, my higher power giving me the gift of gab, and and sometimes I don't. I mean, I just don't know. It's because I'm such a nerd, and just been into this stuff all my life. But
Yeah.
also recognizing, I think that pop culture is our culture. Culture is important. Politics is downstream from culture, as Andrew Breitbart said, and he wasn't wrong. And I think many on the right never took it seriously for a long, long time. They poo-pooed it. They would actively, back in the 90s, try to censor it. We'd have people who say, you know, gamers are just incel nerds who are in their basement. You're just a freaking nerd. And believe me, I've come from the school of like when you were a nerd, you got your ass kicked. But and what happened is the right started recognizing that, and more people started recognizing that like pop culture is our American mythology.
Mm.
Mythology is important. Storytelling is important. It goes back to the dawn of man and painting on caves and Greek mythology, and that's how we actually within that mythology is actually more people are finding this out, like real information, real history baked into that mythology. And that's what this is for us. So it's very important, and it's indicative of how healthy our culture is. We are the greatest country in the world to where we have the time to read comic books and novels and watch and argue over Star Wars. There's
Yeah.
been no nation that, and we have a lot of people to thank for that. But now we're starting to lose that, and we're seeing it degrade, and we're seeing like there's no comedy out there anymore,
Mhm.
outside of some brave souls and some brave stand-up comics who are never going to get a job in Hollywood getting their TV show because because they're too honest. And
Yeah.
that's bad. That's showing our culture is degrading. It's an entropy. And until we can have a sense of humor again, laugh at ourselves, laugh at other things, and start getting better stories, that will show that our culture is healing. Not there yet. I think we might have a chance now. I think I see some things getting better, but
Mhm.
we got a ways to go. But how I just paid way too much attention to this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, it was funny watching my son, who I told you we were supposed to be in an event, the similar event in DC. We were both speaking at it, and I ended up speaking a couple days. You weren't able to go to this time, and
Mm,
and so we missed each other because I also had to be at my son's graduation from infantry training down in Fort Benning, Georgia. And my son has always been interested in comic books, was interested in sci-fi and fantasy in a way that I never was, and I found that made me more interested in it. But there was this time for a while where I was trying to figure out like, okay, what's the appeal? Um, and I will say that again, one of the things I appreciated, and it kind of made sense watching you talk about some of the stuff and watching my son like argue over a fine point about like that's not canon, right? Like
mhm.
that's a violation of the lore. And it would be really easy if you didn't understand it to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, they're arguing over make believe stuff. And I kind of realized listening to my son talk about some of these things and listening to you talk about certain things is that you can't just look at this as a story. It really is part of this mythos. It really is part of this idea. It has kind of been it's been a way of kind of explaining in part the American story, and as well as just things that the human story on things that we're trying to overcome or fight against or whatever it might be. But the thing that I appreciated and the thing that I really connected with is that as I was fighting battles in politics or whatever else it was, I found common cause with people that were fighting battles in this cultural space because they knew what the real story was. When they talk about the lore, when they talk about canon, they knew what the real story was, and they saw somebody trying to pervert something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this righteous indignation that I saw out of it that I didn't understand at first. And then when I was able to connect the story to the values, to the morality, to the challenges, to the experience, it was like, we're fighting for the same thing.
Yes.
And so I am very grateful for the work that you've done on and how it helped connect a lot of the things that I was very passionate about and understanding the common cause. Because you're absolutely right that if we're not fighting for culture, we're losing.
We're losing.
Because, yeah. So once again, I would just let everyone know, where can they get the pre-order for the book?
Go to rippascend.com, and it's RIPPASEND.com.
And we'll put that link in the description as well. And then, of course, where can everybody I mean, I've said Nerdrotic like 13 times during this podcast, but
right.
where's the best place for people to find you?
Nerdrotic on YouTube. It might autofill Nerdrotic is toxic automatically. It's been doing that for 3 years. You can hit that if you want. It'll take you to my videos.
Yeah.
So... yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, we'll put all the links in the description and whatnot. Gary, once again, thank you so much for opening up, being willing to share the story. I think it's inspirational. I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people. And as always, thank you very much for the work that you do.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
All right, everybody, that's all the time we got today. Run over there. Don't just watch the videos, by the way. Go over there and like and subscribe to Nerdrotic. He's very polite about it. He will thank you for watching and not liking and subscribing. I'm now telling you, I'm being the authoritarian in this conversation and saying he deserves the like, he deserves the subscribe. Go over and do that. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.